Yeah, more Blackluster Soldier action. We have Blitzclique and even Aleister. Make sure you guys smash the link crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more Oz content. The beginning stages of Chaos Origins meta has been quite an interesting one. Just to kind of see, what ideas are these players throwing around, what idea is going to stick? What's going to be the successful variants? This is one of the pregame variants that kind of caught my attention because obviously, having Herald in your extra deck with Harmonia is absolutely absurd. But then, we do get to see the Blackluster Soldier and the D-Mark actually being cards that can kind of shuffle around each other. I think it's one of the cool aspects that this deck actually has access to in the fun side of things that you're able to kind of work with. Obviously, having all of these tools and, of course, a lot of good staples like the Fallen of White, Harmonia, you do get to see, honestly, like how this deck can actually kind of work together to be a very strong challenger. So I do look forward to seeing how more of this is going to evolve. Now, we do have Blitzclique. There have been a lot of Blitzclique lists, man. I know a lot of OCG players are really trying to make this work, but the deck has a really weird ceiling about it. Like, you have to actually work with like some weird combos. Now, this list is playing double extra to be able to try to, go through some of the extra deck to kind of get set up. This list is also only choosing to play one Harmonia. I can get it. You're playing extra. You don't want to, lose too much with the Harmonia access. You're also, supporting Super Poly targets in the main deck while having Super Poly in the side deck, which I do think is fine. The way that this deck works, it needs just a little bit more on the consistency side of things. I think Konami thought that this deck was going to be a lot better on initial release, but we're going to have to wait and see. We're still very early in the stages for this set. Now, this is probably one of the more interesting versions of this deck. Aleister getting to actually play some of the Magistus stuff to be able to kind of showcase, how this is all going to work. Now, the new fusion monsters that Aleister got are some kind of crazy things. Like, you do have access to a basically mini macrocosmo. You have different really weird access to different things to kind of control the opponent, and that's kind of what you're doing. Now, obviously, with the Magistus stuff, you would normally think, well, is there a Borreload Savage coming? This list is choosing to not play Borreload Savage. They're putting their the Baron as like the bigger target for this, which I guess is not a bad decision, but I really do feel like when you're looking at these decks, having the Baron to floor usually is just the payoff. You have the big monster and it just absolutely gets the job done for you. We have even more of this. Now, this is kind of what I would consider more of the standard approach, right? You have one of the Mayan Shuffle, you're playing two of each of the big monsters. I do know, looking at a lot of these lists, you tend to see that they're only playing one Blackluster Soldier, one Dark Magician of the Chaos, and I get it. It feels like you're going to run into consistency issues by bulking down less on some of those cards. And I don't really feel like that's something that you want to have. You want this deck to be as consistent as possible. And the minute that you start messing around with those ratios, I feel like you're going to run into problems. Now, obviously, we're only playing one Dark Magical Curtain in here. I feel like that might be something you want to extend out. Obviously, you only have one Dark Magician in here, but the point is, like, you hit the curtain, you kind of hit the high roll, and you kind of get the chain rolling here to be able to, get more of the deck going. So that's a pretty major thing for consideration. Next up here, we have more Melfies. This list is a little bit more down to earth in terms of your Melfi representation. We do have two of the vanilla monsters, which is fine. We do have the double Hop-Ear Squadron. The Hop-Ear Squadron being able to kind of leap through a lot of the different setup for this deck is really good. We also do get to see, we're playing Saravis in here. Obviously, if your opponent does have a layered interruption, I feel like you're going to run into some problems. And that's not exactly what we want to be dealing with. You want this deck to get those consistent results so that we can actually, get things going. Also, you're playing Melfi, man. Like, this deck has a lot of cool tricks about it, and I actually really appreciate that. Like, we don't talk enough about like the tool sets that a deck like this actually has, and it's really cool. Obviously, you know, having the Saurus helping you out is going to be great. Next up is Blitzclique. This list is only playing one pot of Lazy, one pot of Prosperity. So obviously, you know, because you're extending out the Harmonia and things like that, you know, you're going to be kind of going into like the fusion side of things to be able to bridge through. Like, you'll know what your matchup is to know, like, do I need to get rid of a super poly target here? You know, can I lose, you know, Garua Mud Dragon, the Starving Venom here? You know where your payoff is going to be with the super poly applications to help you out. You also do see we're main decking one pot of Lazy, side decking the additional two. This is fine. That's a lot of the way that I feel like this deck wants to play. You filter and you get to the parts where you need to. I do think Pot of Lazy does make a lot of these decks a lot more consistent, and that's a really cool thing. Like Blitzclique, it needs it. Next up, we have Regenesis Dark Magician, the pile. This is really cool, actually, because we get to exploit Curtain putting a 2500 anchor on the field. Now, obviously, once you establish that anchor, all the Regenesis monsters can, you know, kind of start to peer in and out and go. We also are playing Mseti in the Horus package. I love every time that this comes up, that the Horus package can just automatically turn into Dark Magician of Destruction, and then you get to go down that entire corridor. That is always a fun explanation to have. So, you know, hey, Mseti being a spellcaster monster opened up some hilarious doors for you to work with. I also see that, you know, we have triple different dimension ground in here as well. Talk about just crazy cards. Not a single thrust in sight. But you know what? If you see the DD ground, you're probably going to win that matchup. Next up, wow, I told you there's always going to be weird decks that we run across. So this is a Nordic Radiant Typhoon pile. And obviously, you don't really think about the ideas, but I mean, like, this is just rank 3 turbo. You know, how fast can I get to MX Saber Invoker to kind of turn on this combo to be able to make it work? And obviously, I mean, like, it works. You just kind of got to remember, I mean, you're playing Nordics. Some of these cards are going to be kind of costly in order to kind of get that giant payoff. But it's the level of consistency that a deck like this kind of portrays that, you know, we like to see. Obviously, is it consistent? I mean, not everything is going to be consistent when it comes to these lists, but it's a concept, you know, and we do once again get to see, you know, rank 3 Radiant Typhoon stuff actually does some crazy things. Also, a little bit of the Phantom Knight package splashed in is kind of nice. And next up, we do get to see some Sacred Beast. I surprisingly have not seen a lot of Radiant, or not a lot of Sacred Beast list. This deck feels really strong, especially when you get to slap 3 Farah in this deck, and Farah just kind of starts to guarantee that, you know, your card's going to get a chance to resolve. You know, Farah revealing the broken Searcher in this deck is kind of insane. Like, I will say, I do think Farah probably changes some of the mentalities that I have about this deck. So we were kind of wondering, you know, what decks do we want to play Farah in? You know, what's the payoff to actually, you know, have the Farah reveal? Well, I mean, gotta make sure the Sacred Beast shit's resolving. Because, like, if the Sacred Beast stuff is not going to get the chance to resolve, then your whole game plan just falls apart. Like, that's the downside to that. And then our last list is Monarch Blitzclique. I mean, I guess this makes sense, right? Like, your extra deck you don't really care about, but it's just how much Mega Zaborg can you kind of mill through to kind of punish your opponent. That's I kind of feel like that's what you get with this list. Also, Triple Underworld Circle is a concept, actually. I feel like you don't really get a chance to see some interesting things like that kind of coming to town. So definitely some interesting list here, to say the least. So what do you guys think about these very interesting takes? Please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here in a day, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.